Okay, so picture this. It is February 2026. You have packed your bags.
Right.
You have requested the time off work. And you are standing at the cruise terminal in Miami, or maybe Galveston.
Mm-hmm.
You are ready for a week of sun and margaritas. You have spent thousands of dollars. You are entirely ready to disconnect.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But instead of walking onto the ship, you are watching a staff member with a clipboard manually counting heads. Because the entire digital brain of the cruise line has completely fried.
It is literally the modern traveler's nightmare. I mean, we rely so heavily on these seamless digital ecosystems.
You really do.
But when they snap hard. It turns a billion-dollar asset into just a floating hotel that cannot even open its doors.
Exactly. And that is exactly what happened to Carnival Cruise Line just recently. But, and here's where it gets really interesting to me, at the exact same time that one major line is melting down over a software update, another one is making massive moves.
Disney Cruise Line.
Yes, Disney. They are making one of the most aggressive and confident strategic moves we have seen in years regarding their fleet deployment.
It really is a fascinating study in contrasts. We're looking at two massive stories for you today.
We are.
On one side, we have the sheer fragility of digital-first travel with the Carnival incident. And on the other, we have the promise of future luxury with Disney's 2027 deployment plans.
So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack both of these sources.
Mm.
We're going to look at what happens when a smart ship stops being smart. And then we are going to look at how the industry is reshuffling its biggest assets to chase demand.
Right.
Whether you are a cruiser or a tech observer or just someone fascinated by how these floating cities operate, this really affects you.
It is all about that intersection of high-tech operations and high-stakes hospitality. Shall we start with the chaos?
We absolutely have to start with the chaos.
Yeah.
So take us back to the weekend of February 8th and 9th, 2026. What exactly happened with Carnival?
Well, it started with two words that usually mean absolutely nothing to a passenger.
Planned maintenance.
Exactly. Planned maintenance. Carnival attempted a scheduled update to their back-end systems. In theory, this happens completely in the background. It is like changing the oil in your car.
You just do it in the driveway.
Right, and it takes an hour and you barely think about it.
But this was not an oil change.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
In the IT world, planned maintenance on a live system that operates 24/7, it is a bit more like performing open-heart surgery while the patient is running a marathon.
Wow.
They attempted an update, and instead of a smooth upgrade, it triggered a technology disruption, and that just cascaded across the North American fleet.
And when you say cascaded, we're not talking about one ship having a glitchy app where you just can't book a massage.
No, we're talking about at least 11 ships.
11 ships.
Yeah. The Carnival Breeze, the Carnival Glory, Carnival Celebration, Carnival Jubilee, the list just goes on. This was not isolated at all. It was a fleet-wide systemic failure.
I was reading through the reports on this, and the passenger experience sounds like something straight out of the 1990s. The terminals were completely gridlocked because the electronic verification systems failed.
That is the critical failure point right there.
Yep.
Modern cruising relies on biometric facial recognition and instant digital clearances.
Right. It is usually so frictionless.
Exactly. When you walk into a terminal now, you aren't usually showing a passport to a human who squints at your photo.
Mhm.
You're just pausing in front of a camera.
Mm-hmm.
It pings a server, which checks with Customs and Border Protection and clears you in maybe 3 seconds.
But when that server connection is severed,
The entire process stops. You cannot legally board or disembark passengers if you cannot verify the manifest.
so the port teams had to completely revert to manual procedures.
They did.
And I mean manually. There's this detail from Carnival's brand ambassador, John Heald, that just stuck with me. He said staff literally had to manually count guests leaving the ships. Can you imagine standing at the gangway, just clicking a clicker? 1, 2, 3. For 4,000 people.
It creates a massive bottleneck. And it actually gets way more complicated than just counting.
How so?
Well, usually your sail and sign card, your room key, is your entire life on board.
Right. It is your ID, your credit card, everything.
Exactly. But because the systems were completely down, staff had to physically collect these cards from departing guests to verify they had actually disembarked.
Which seems like a small logistical thing at first.
Until you realize that people, especially kids and first-time cruisers, they keep those cards as souvenirs.
Oh, of course. It is their memento of the whole trip.
Right, and they could not be reprinted for security reasons. The system that prints them was totally disconnected.
So you have departing guests visibly upset about losing their mementos.
Oh.
And arriving guests standing in lines that are hours long, baking in the Florida or Texas sun.
That was a mess.
But the chaos did not stop at the gangway.
All right.
I mean, once people actually finally got on the ship, the smart features were still dead.
Correct. The Carnival Hub app was down.
And people use that for everything. Dinner reservations, chatting with family on board.
Because cell service is incredibly expensive at sea.
Yeah.
And Wi-Fi was completely down too. But here is where it gets really financially painful for the cruise line.
The retail.
Retail and the casinos lost all connectivity.
Oh, wow. So if you can't swipe your card?
You can't play the slots unless you have cold, hard cash. And honestly, who carries significant cash on a cruise ship in 2026?
Nobody. You tap your wristband or your card for absolutely everything.
Exactly. Guests actually reported seeing handwritten cash-only signs taped up in the casinos.
That is wild.
And at the bars and the duty-free shops, the staff were writing out handwritten receipts.
Handwritten receipts on a ship that cost $1 billion to build.
It really highlights just how vulnerable these operations are. We tend to assume the tech is just a nice layer on top of the hospitality.
Like a bonus feature.
Right, but it is actually the entire foundation. When it crumbles, the operation doesn't just slow down a bit, it grinds to an absolute halt.
Speaking of grinding to a halt, let's talk about the departures. Because these ships didn't just leave a little late, they left really, really late.
Very late. The Carnival celebration, for instance, was originally scheduled to leave Port Miami at 3:30 p.m.
Which is pretty standard.
But it didn't push off until after 1 a.m. the next morning.
Wow, that is massive. That is practically half a day of your vacation gone before you even leave the dock. You were just sitting there looking at the Miami skyline at midnight wondering why you are not at sea.
And that brings us to the really interesting controversy regarding why they were delayed.
Right, the conflicting narratives.
This is where the story gets so fascinating from a crisis communication perspective. There were totally different messages coming out of Carnival regarding safety.
Yeah, let's unpack this for everyone. Because on one hand, you have John Heald, the brand ambassador, talking directly to the guests via video.
Right, and Heald is really the face of the brand for the core loyalists. In his video update, he was very direct. He stated that the issue affected navigation and safety systems.
Which was his explanation for why the ships physically could not leave the dock.
Exactly.
And that makes total sense to a layperson. If the main computer is broken, maybe the navigation is broken. If I hear navigation systems are down, I am immediately thinking the ship cannot steer or the radar is blind.
Naturally.
But then the president of Carnival steps in.
Yes. Christine Duffy, the president of Carnival Cruise Line, sent a letter out later on, and she explicitly disputed Heald's characterization.
What'd she say?
She wrote, and I quote, "At no time were any navigation or safety systems affected."
So what does this all mean? Was it a safety issue or wasn't it? Why the two completely different stories?
If we connect this to the bigger picture of integrated ship systems, it is most likely a matter of semantics.
Semantics.
Yeah. The actual radar, the physical engines, the rudder, those were likely perfectly fine. So Duffy is technically correct. The ship was fully seaworthy.
Right.
But if the IT system that verifies the passenger manifest is down under maritime regulations, you simply cannot sail.
Because you don't know exactly who is on board.
Exactly. So Heald was practically correct. The system prevented navigation, even if the actual steering wheel worked fine.
The IT department was effectively overriding the captain.
Precisely.
That's a very crucial distinction. It wasn't that the ship could not float. It was that the data could not verify it was safe to leave from a strict regulatory standpoint.
Right, and that confusion in the public messaging just adds to the frustration for the guest. You have one highly visible person saying safety systems are down, and the president saying safety systems are totally fine.
It totally erodes trust.
It does.
Which brings us to the inevitable question of compensation. You have thousands of people stuck in terminals losing their first evening, dealing with no Wi-Fi, writing down their drink orders on napkins. What did Carnival actually offer them?
Well, prepare to be a bit underwhelmed. Carnival is refunding the daily internet charges.
Just the internet charge.
Just the internet.
You have got to be kidding.
No, depending on your plan, that is somewhere between maybe $20 and $90 if you had the premium multi-device package.
But what about the person who sat in a terminal for 6 hours and missed their first formal dinner seating? Or the person who missed the entire sail-away deck party?
Nothing mandated.
Nothing.
And legal experts are very clear on this in the sources. under maritime law, and that lengthy passenger contract you sign when you book Carnival is not obligated to provide compensation for delays caused by these types of issues.
They just contract to move you from point A to point B.
Exactly. Not necessarily on time.
That is a really tough pill to swallow for guests. It highlights that while the marketing always sells you magic, the actual legal reality is just transportation.
It really is. It reminds us that while we view cruises as luxury hospitality legally, they are just a very fancy bus service, and delays happen.
All right, so we have Carnival, wrestling with the present-day reality of technical fragility. Now let's completely pivot.
Let's do it.
Let's look at the future. Because while Carnival was busy issuing Wi-Fi refunds, Disney Cruise Line was dropping their summer 2027 deployment schedule.
And there is some massive headline news here.
This is a major strategic shift. The huge headline is the Disney Wish.
The Wish?
Yes, that is their newest shiny flagship vessel.
Yeah.
It has basically just been sitting in Port Canaveral doing those short 3- and 4-night Bahamas runs since it launched.
Exactly. It has been the absolute cash cow for Florida. High volume, high price point, very short turnaround. But for summer 2027 specifically, from April 25 to September 10, the Disney Wish is leaving Florida.
Wow.
It is going to Europe for the very first time.
That feels incredibly significant to me, because usually the older ships go off to Europe while the brand new ones stay right close to the U.S. home ports to drive that core market.
Historically, yes, that is the standard playbook, but this really signals how aggressively the cruise lines are chasing the Mediterranean market right now.
Right.
Disney is taking its absolute best hardware, the ship with the Aquamouse water coaster and the high-end Star Wars bar, and putting it in Southampton, Barcelona, and Civitavecchia.
That is the port for Rome, right?
Yes, exactly.
And they're hitting some really interesting new ports, too. It isn't just the standard big city run.
They are diversifying. They are listing Zadar in Croatia, Trieste in Italy, and Hellesylt in Norway.
Those are stunning locations.
They really are. These aren't just the standard tourist trap ports. They are actively diversifying the itinerary to appeal to people who have maybe already done the main European cities and want something a bit more premium.
Okay, but logically, if the Wish leaves Florida, that leaves a massive hole in Port Canaveral.
A huge vacuum.
Right, because that ship carries anywhere from 2,500 to 4,000 people every 3 or 4 days. That is a ton of volume to replace.
This is what we call the domino effect of fleet deployment. To fill that vacuum, the Disney Dream is stepping in, depending on how you look at it.
Okay.
The Dream is taking over the Wish's old route. So the Dream will do those quick 3- and 4-night Bahamas cruises from Port Canaveral.
Got it. So the Dream comes back to the short runs. What about the rest of the fleet? It feels like there are so many Disney ships now compared to just a few years ago.
It is getting crowded, which is honestly great for travelers because it offers so many more options. You have the Disney Fantasy, the Disney Treasure, and the brand new Disney Destiny.
All in Florida.
Yes, they are all splitting up the rest of the Caribbean and Bahamas demand from the Florida ports.
It is truly a global shuffle they are pulling off.
It is. And we really cannot ignore the West Coast either.
Right, the Alaska cruises.
The Disney Magic and the Disney Wonder are both returning to Vancouver for the full Alaska seasons. Alaska is incredibly profitable and wildly popular for families.
And then there is the giant in the room, or rather the giant out in Asia.
The Disney Adventure.
Yes.
This ship is completely massive. It has a capacity for about 6,700 passengers.
That is almost a small town.
It really is. And it is remaining firmly in Singapore for 3- and 4-night sailings throughout all of 2027.
Doing those cruises to nowhere, right?
Essentially, yes. It is a business model that works incredibly well in that specific market.
Because the ship itself is the whole point.
Exactly. The ship is the destination. You do not need to get off at a port because the resort you are floating on is way better than anything you'd see on land in a rush few hours anyway.
So Disney is clearly betting that global demand is going to be high enough to fill all of these massive vessels simultaneously.
They aren't worried about saturation at all.
Not a bit.
They are segmenting their audience perfectly. Europe for the luxury cultural traveler, Florida for the quick family getaway, Asia for the massive immersive resort experience.
Speaking of segmenting the audience, let's talk about the themed experiences. Because digging into the 2027 schedule, there are some very specific nerdy details that I know you appreciate.
Oh, absolutely. I love this part. The return of Marvel Day at Sea and Pixar Day at Sea in early 2027 is going to be big for families.
But just to orient everyone listening, where are these actually happening? If I want to meet Spider-Man, where do I book?
Okay, so if you want the superheroes, Spider-Man, Black Panther, Thor, You need to be on the Disney Magic sailing out of Galveston, Texas.
Okay, and Pixar.
If you want Pixar-like Toy Story, Finding Nemo, The Crushes, totally awesome pool party, you need the Disney Fantasy sailing out of Port Canaveral.
Okay, but you pointed out something in the source material regarding these themes that I totally missed initially.
The pirate rule.
Yes, the pirate rule.
This is honestly my favorite aha moment in the documents. It is such a small detail, but it says so incredibly much about how Disney operates.
Lay it out for us.
They have a very strict thematic rule for the Marvel Day at Sea sailings. They explicitly state there will be no pirate night on those cruises.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Because Pirate Night is a huge staple of Disney cruising.
It is massive.
Everyone dresses up. There are fireworks at sea. People bring elaborate costumes. Why cut it entirely?
Think about the thematic integrity.
Okay.
Disney takes its intellectual property very seriously. In the Marvel Universe, you have Avengers, you have aliens, you have high-tech gadgetry.
Right.
You do not have Jack Sparrow.
So they are actively keeping the universes separate.
Exactly. They are worried about brand contamination.
Brand contamination, wow.
Yeah, you cannot have Iron Man flying around the exact same deck where pirates are swashbuckling the very next night. It muddies the brand water. They want the immersion to be absolutely airtight.
That is wild to me.
Yeah.
It really shows a level of commitment to the story that other cruise lines just do not have. I
Yeah.
feel like most lines would just say, throw it all in.
Right. People like pirates. People like Spidey give them both.
Exactly.
But Disney says no. And it creates scarcity, too. If you want pirates, do not book the Marvel cruise. If you want Marvel, you have to sacrifice the pirates.
It forces the consumer to self-select their fandom.
Exactly.
And speaking of choices and scarcity, the race to book these 2027 cruises is about to start. And judging by the forums, people are already stressing out.
It is a total race. The booking window is heavily tiered based on your loyalty status.
How does that work?
It opens February 16th, 2027 for the Pearl members. Those are the absolute top-tier loyalists who have sealed at least 25 times.
25 times. That is a serious financial
At
investment.
that point, it is a lifestyle.
Truly. And for the rest of us, mere mortals.
The general public does not get access until February 23rd. That is a full week later.
So realistically, by the time the public gets in the best rooms on the Wish in Europe might be completely gone.
Oh, absolutely. The concierge suites, the specific midship veranda rooms people want, they will be scooped up by the Pearls immediately.
Wow.
This tiered system heavily rewards loyalty and creates that intense fear of missing out.
It really is a stark contrast to what we discussed with Carnival, isn't
Oh,
it?
at night and day. At Carnival, people are fighting for a $20 Wi-Fi refund because the most basic service failed.
Right.
At Disney, people are practically fighting for the privilege to pay thousands of dollars a full year in advance for a product that hasn't even happened yet.
That perfectly sums up the state of the industry right there. It is totally bifurcated.
It shows the two sides of the coin perfectly. The operational struggle to just deliver the basics versus the strategic mastery of generating infinite demand.
So let's try to synthesize these two stories for you as we wrap up. We have the operational meltdown on one side and the strategic global expansion on the other. What is the big takeaway here for the listener?
I think the real thread connecting them both is complexity.
Complexity.
Yes. On one hand, Carnival shows us the extreme vulnerability of that complexity. We have built these floating smart cities that rely on constant uninterrupted data flow. And when the tech fails, we regress instantly to pen and paper and the entire system collapses.
It is very humbling. It reminds us that all this beautiful luxury is built on a very fragile server farm somewhere.
It really is. But then look at Disney. They're managing complexity on a massive global scale.
Weaving ships around like chess pieces.
Moving massive assets, creating these intricate rules about which intellectual property can appear on which ship, and managing a tiered booking system that drives absolute frenzy.
It really seems like the modern cruise experience is becoming high stakes on both sides of the equation. High stakes for the operator to keep the invisible systems running smoothly, and high stakes for the passenger to navigate the complex booking and logistics.
Absolutely. The days of just showing up at a dock, buying a paper ticket, and walking onto a boat are totally gone. You are entering a highly engineered digital and logistical ecosystem.
Yeah.
When it works like Disney's grand plan for the Wish, it feels like absolute magic.
But when it breaks, like Carnival's maintenance weekend,
It is a cage.
a cage with no Wi-Fi and cash-only slot machines.
The worst kind of cage, honestly.
So as we wrap this deep dive up,
Yeah.
I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over.
Let's hear it.
We are so used to our phones updating overnight, right? We're used to apps being buggy for a few hours. we get annoyed, but we move on.
Sure, it is part of daily life.
But we're entering a world where these massive ships are essentially floating software platforms. And the question I have is this. We accept that planned maintenance might delay our morning emails, but are we really ready for a world where a software patch can physically hold a billion-dollar ship at the dock?
Wow.
When you step onto a cruise ship in 2026 or 2027, you are not just trusting the captain to steer the ship anymore. You are trusting the IT department to literally let the ship leave.
That is a very sobering thought to end on. The captain might still be in charge, but the server admin is the one actually holding the keys.
Exactly. Something to think about while you are booking that European summer vacation or while you're packing your sail and sign lanyard. Thanks for diving into the sources with us today.
Always a pleasure. Safe travels, everyone.
See you next time.